Now, a quick preview about CSS or cascading style sheets that we started talking about last week. As I said, cascading style sheets, if you remember, is a method or a way to format the presentation of your web documents. And by cascading style sheets, or by using cascading style sheets, you would decouple the data and the information that you have in your HTML files from the way that they will be presented or formatted within a web browser. And this allows for a tremendous amount of reduction in code, and also a tremendous amount of control over the look of web pages and websites that we create. There are 4 different types of CSS selectors that I will talk about them, and we will use them. The universal selector, which is a star or an asterisk, it is used to apply a style to the entire page. So whatever you put in terms of formatting information and materials within the brackets for universal selector will be applied to the entire page unless it's overridden by another type of selector. The type selector, which basically is when you put the element tag name and then within the brackets, the curly brackets, you define the information, basically will be applied to that particular type. For example, if I add a P element and then define its style within the curly brackets, whenever I use the P tag or P element in my HTML document, the style will be applied to the text that I put in it. If I want to apply the style only to one particular element or one particular object within my web document, I could give that element an ID and use the ID selector, which is a hash sign, to apply the CSS element on it. And if I want to apply the formatting or the style sheet formats into several items on my web page of different tags or different IDs or different elements, I create a class with the class selector, which is a period or a dot, and then I name that class. So I could have, for example, dot my class, and apply and define the format and the styling information to it in my cascading style sheet. And when I'm creating HTML elements in the main code or in the main page or in several pages, when I create the elements using their tags, I can add an attribute that is called class attribute and make that attribute to be the class that I defined in my cascading style sheets. Grouping and combining selectors can also be done with cascading style sheets. If I wanted to have several, for example, headings, H1, H2, H3, and so forth, to have specific styles, I could group them together and separate each tag name from with a comma, and then define the styling in them. If I wanted to apply several styles within each other, I could also cascade them, as you see. For example, in the last line on this slide tells me that I have an ID selector which is only applied to the element with the ID of main content in my HTML code, and if that ID within its text, it has a paragraph element with a class name attention, then the style that is applied here will be applied to that particular class within the main content of my page. I'll show you how these things work in a little while. There are several properties of HTML files, I mean CSS style sheets in stylings, and I'll go over them quickly here. There is the background properties that you could either change the background color for a particular style or a background image. You could use the property float to float your your object. For example, if you have a table and you want it to be to be placed left of all the text in your document, you could create a float property to it. You could change the family of fonts, your font size, your font styles, italic, bold, and your font weight, which talks about whether or not you want it to be bold or just solid. And then there are size properties for your elements. You can change the height and width, or define the height and width of a particular element or a particular selector. You could define the border of an element. You could decide whether or not to display or hide the element using the display property. You can change the margin of objects or elements. You can assign the paddings of your elements, how many pixels you want them to be padded. You can assign the visibility of your objects and also the color of your objects. When you're changing or assigning values to the color property, they should be in RGB format. So you could either use a known color such as red, or you could use a hash sign followed by 6 hexadecimal digits such as numbers 0 to 9 and letters A to F, and this way you define your the color of your objects. Now, in order to visualize how your objects would appear in your cascading style sheet, or essentially in your rendered web browser, we need to talk about the borders, padding, margin of the elements, and the width and height of the elements. Now, you can define an element and assign a special width or height to it, and that would basically represent how long the element will be itself. If you define paddings, it's basically the padding around the element. So in this case, I have defined an element with a specific width, and I want it to be padded from its neighbors with a specific number of pixels. And I could also assign a border to this element that would allow me to draw shaded borders around this element with different size, so that would even separate my elements further from each other. And I can also define a margin for this element that would tell me that how far I want to place the border of the element from its neighboring elements. So if I define an element with 100 pixels width and pad it 2 pixels with a 2 pixel border and with a 2 pixel margin, the width of this element will be 100 plus 4 for the paddings from both sides, 4 for the border from both sides, and 4 for the margin from both sides. Therefore, I will have 112 pixels, and will be the distance of the element from its neighboring elements. Alright, so here I would like to show you how we can apply cascading style sheets to our files. Now, first off, I have created a new website, as I showed you earlier last week. It's an ASPX website, and I added to the website the default.aspx document by right-clicking on the website and clicking Add New Item. And I also added a style sheet.css file to my website. So as you see, this website contains a form with ID form 1, and it runs in server. We talk about this a little bit more when we are talking actually about ASP programming, but right now I want to show you about styling this website. So I just add some basic objects to this website, and then I try to modify the styles.css to change the size and location of these elements and some of their properties. So let's first look at this first div element, which is basically an element that can contain multiple elements within it. Let's give it an ID. So let's type ID page wrapper, and within this this div element, let's create a header. So let's create another div, and its ID will be header, and within this header I'll just type some simple things. The header, and at the end of this the next element will be a menu. So I create another div element, and its ID is basically menu, and some text, and let's add another element which will be the main content. So I create another div, and here I give it an ID of main content, and there will be the place that I will put my my main contents of the HTML document. So let's add a h1 and some text. Okay, so if I render this page, as you see, I have created the styling elements, but I haven't styled them yet. So the first line is within a div element. Basically, it's a wrapper that different styles can be applied to it, and I can have, and it says here I have the header, and the second line is the second div element, div element, and that talks about having a menu there, and the main content of the page. And so I didn't apply any sort of visual styling and formatting to these elements, so as you can see, they're just rendered by default. So let's go back to our object, and let's just add some more more elements to this website, or essentially web page. Let's assume that you want to have a sidebar also, and a footer for this page. So what you could do is that you could create another div, and you add the ID of sidebar, and within this sidebar you have several objects. Let's say that you have you have three, or let's have 2 lines here for the sidebar. Line 2 goes here, and let's add the footer. I ID its footer. And let's run this website one more time. So the browser, without any styling, it just piled everything together, and it just really doesn't look like the formatted page that I wanted to be. Now, the technique here is to apply style sheets and essentially create the styles for each of these objects and components to tell the browser where to render them. If we want to have different backgrounds or different colors or different formatted text within them, and how the browser would interpret this presentation information about the web page as opposed to the main contents and the contents that it is presenting. Okay, let's add some styles to our web page. Now, open the styles.css file that you created, and I actually had my styles file opened, stylesheet.css, and I added the ID selector for the header. If you look at the default ASP.x, now I want to give some styles to the header of my web page, which is it's different than the head of the page with the title elements and all that. It's actually a placeholder that I created with the div element, and I want to put this header on top of the website. Now let's go back to this styles element, and what I could do is that I could either type in or hardcode my styling presentation or my formatting information for the header placeholder here, or I could use the Visual Web Developer for this purpose, and that's what I'm going to do here. You could place your mouse between the curly braces for the header style selector, and then go to the main menu and click from the styles, click build style. When you click on the build style, a menu appears here, and that would allow you to modify your styles. To the left, you'll see a set of choices that it will allow me to basically modify. The first one is the font. It allows me to select several fonts. A block element, which talks about how it wants to be the elements to be spaced, and the indentation of the text, the alignment of the text, and all that. Background allows me to change the background of this style. Border lets me choose borders for in terms of pixels or inches. Box is again the type of padding and margin that I want to have around my element that I was talking about earlier. And as you see here, your box has 4 sides: top, left, bottom, and right. And then you'd have the margin, border, and padding, and the element will be within that box. Position also allows you to come up with how you want your elements to be positioned within or text to be positioned within the web browser. Now let's go to the background, and from the background color, let's choose a kind of grayish background, and that would be essentially the number C0, C0, C0 in terms of RGB values. And let's go to the position, and let's have 844 pixels for the width and about 84 pixels for the height of this object. So here is how the code would look like, and the system automatically creates the style for the header ID selector. Now let's save this file and let's run. As you see, the style didn't apply to the page, and the reason for this is because this style is an external style, and I haven't linked my style to the website, or the web page. I need to use the link tag within the head element of the web page to apply the style or external style sheet to it. Let's do that. In the head element, as you see here, I can define the title. I just add a title to the file, and then I could add the link tag, which would let me choose a a style sheet. So I could use this style sheet which is from my main folder. If it was in a different folder, I should find its relative address to the page and add it. And then the relation of this this file to my my object is style sheet. So you add style sheet as the relation, and the type of this file is a text /CSS. That tells me that this is a style sheet file. So let's now run the page, and as you see here, it actually did make the or apply the styling of the element to my page. So it made it 84 pixels high and 844 pixels wide. It made the background color gray, and it didn't make any other changes to the text that was presented on this on the page. Okay, let's add more styles to the text, and if I wanted all of the text here to be rendered from the family font of Arial, what I will do is that I will go to the style sheet and I apply a universal selector with the star, and I could type in font family Arial, and when I run this page again, you will see that the font that was by default a Times New Roman had now changed and is changed to Arial for all of the text, from the containers with the header, the footer, the main content, the sidebar of the page. So let's change the font size of the first heading that I'm using for the main content, which is this element. Let's use an element selector here in the style sheet to change the size of the font that this element will use to a different size. So font size, and as you see, the neat thing about IntelliSense is when as you type in, it actually automatically detects what you probably would need to apply, and it allows you different choices. Now let's look back to see what other types of elements we have. Now if you look at the page wrapper, the element with the ID of page wrapper, that basically contains all of my information from the page, and I could make changes to its width so that it would render with a fixed width. So if I'm using, or somebody is using, a browser with a lower resolution, it will still keep all of the documents within a smaller size, and basically make sure that a wider range of users can watch my page without having to scroll down or up. So let's use another ID selector, and let's apply changes to the page wrapper ID, and let's make its width 844. As you see, I can also use auto, which will basically automatically adjust the page to the web browser, or I could use inherit, basically allow it to inherit its width from a higher element that contains it. Now this page wrapper is the highest element within my page, so inherit wouldn't work, And also, if you notice here, when I typed in, it allowed me, basically told me that I have three choices: auto, a unit, or inherit. So I just make it 84 pixels wide. As you see, the moment I start typing, it would allow me to, it would tell me what type of choices I would have to put in front of my my property, or the value of this property. Okay, and let's go back to the default ASP. In the default ASP, you see that you have the page wrapper, you have the header, which I created already. I have a menu wrapper. I want the menu wrapper also to be 844 pixels wide. Then I want the main content to be a little smaller than 844 pixels, so that I could put a sidebar next to it. And so in order to make those changes, I'll go back to the style sheet, and I can either type in my information, or I could basically create the selector, and then from the styles menu, from the menu bar on top of the Visual Web Developer, choose to build a style, and then automatically browse through options and choices and work with them. So let's create now the menu wrapper of this slide, or this style. Now within the curly braces, I click on styles, and then I click on build style, and then go to the position and make its width 844 pixels. Main content, styles, build style. The main content, I want it to be 664 pixels wide, and floating left. This will basically put the main content, and it's basically what it does is that it puts it to the left side of the browser, and whatever space is left, which is about 180 pixels, it would fit other elements within that size in the main page, or the browser. Now I want to also put the sidebar next to the main content. Since main content is 664 pixels wide and the page is 844 pixels wide, I have 180 pixels left, so I can make the sidebar selector to essentially have a different color, and have a 100 pixels width, and float to basically float to the left, which basically attaches it to the exact right border of the main content. So and when I run this, you will see the effects of this information that I create. So let's go to the build style. Let's make the background color gray. Let's go to the position. Let's make it 180 pixels wide. Let's go to the layout, and let's make it float left. And in the bottom here in the description, it tells you the styles that you just clicked and how they would look like in the text. And here is your sidebar. Now for the footer, you want it to be basically the size of the entire, or its width to be the size of the width of the entire page, and you want it to essentially have a gray color. So let's go and create the footer selector. Let's build styles for it. Let's make the background color gray. 844 pixels wide. And then clear both sides. Okay. So here's how this looks like. Now let's save everything. Now let's go back to our file. The ID page wrapper, which is a container that contains everything in my web page. In the style sheet, it's basically styled to be 844 pixels, and everything in my web browser will be Arial. The header, which is the first content or the first placeholder here in the page wrapper, I want it to be appearing on top of the page, and I want it to be 844 pixels, basically the same width as the page itself, and I want the background color to be gray, so I have that. And for the menu wrapper, I want it to be again 844 pixels wide, the same width of the page itself. And then for the main content, I want it to be placed to the left side of the browser and to be shorter than the entire page. So the size that I gave it is 644 pixels, and it's floating to the left of the page. And then the sidebar contains some sidebar information. I want it to appear to the right side of the main content of the page, so I created floating left, and I created its width. I designed its width so that the main content placeholder and the sidebar placeholder side by side will fill the entire page. And finally, for the footer, I just want it to be a long or as long as the page itself, and be in a different color and clear from both sides of the menu. So both sides of the browser. So when I run this default page, hopefully I will see some changes. Okay, the footer is good, the header is good, the main content is good, but the sidebar didn't work. Maybe I have not spelled it right. Yes, as you see, the sidebar here is spelled with the first initial letter capital, whereas here it is not. So you need to make sure that these styling references are the same, otherwise it won't be applying. Now I run the page one more time. Alright, so I figured what the problem was. I had resized the browser that I was showing the page in, and so it wasn't really fitting in the page, and therefore it would take the sidebar, although it was floated to the left of the main content. The size of the window was smaller than the entire size of the main content, and so it was pushing the sidebar down at the bottom of the page. But essentially the page would look something like this. Now let me go one more time over the styles that I created, and what I used was ID selectors, and this made sure that the styles that I'm creating will be applied only to one component of the page, which was the ID that I was using for each of those div elements. And this allows me basically to manipulate my pages by micromanaging the look of every single object that appears on the page. So now let's go back to the style file here. Again, everything is Arial in this page, as you see here. The header is a gray color, 844 pixels wide, 84 pixels high, and the background color is gray, and 844 is the size width of the header, and the height of the header is 84 pixels. Then I have a menu bar. I haven't styled it yet, so it doesn't except for its text. So the menu doesn't have any formatting information. I have a sidebar which is a gray color, and I could put extra menu information, or I could images and things like that in it. And this background is gray, and it is floating in the page next to the main content, which is also floating, and it's aligned to the left of the page. And the footer of the page is 844 pixels wide, which is the width of the entire page itself, and its background is gray. I could use padding and margins and borders to make the text to appear a little bit away from the sides of its containers. But for now, let's keep this style sheets like that. Alright, now that we started and created our first style sheets, let me tell you about the different tools that Visual Web Developer has to allow us work with CSS files. These are the tools that Visual Web Developer gives us to create and work and manipulate styles. The Style Sheet toolbar gives you quick access to creating new rules and new styles. The CSS Properties grid enables us to change property values from within the visual environment of the Visual Web Developer. The Manage Styles window enables us to organize styles in the site and to change them from one form to another, like from embedded to external style sheets and vice versa. We can reorder them, we can link existing style sheets to a document, we can create new inline embedded or external style sheets by working with Manage Styles window. There's the Apply Styles window that we can use to choose from all available styles in our website and quickly apply them to the elements in the pages. The Style Builder lets us use visual, which we did, a visual tool to create declarations in our CSS files. And the Add Style Rule window allows us to essentially build complex selectors and complex style rules within our CSS window, CSS files. And I'll be discussing some of these tools in the next few minutes, and after we kind of work with a couple more examples and get used to the style sheets and formatting and designing the web pages, then I could move on to the next part of the lecture, talking about a little bit about ASP.NET Server controls. And then next week I'll finish the ASP.NET Server controls, and I'll talk about data types and variables, and essentially programming our ASP web pages on the server side. In certain situations, we want to apply the styles or change the styles of the files when, for example, we visit a link, so we want to change the color of the hyperlink. Sometimes you want to avoid the color being changed automatically as a default behavior of the browser, because sometimes you want to use links as basically menu items, and we might click them several times, and we want, even when we visited a part of the website by clicking on its appropriate menu button, we don't want that color to be changed. And also sometimes you want to change the behavior or the style of an element when the user hovers their mouse over the element and create some sort of dynamic visual properties for the static text in the page. We could use cascading style sheets to do that instead of using JavaScript programs to create or manipulate the text in that way. These selectors that allow us to do this are called pseudo-class selectors, and usually there are :visited or :hover. These are the two types of these classes. And for example, if you want to change the color of the link after it's visited, or basically when the user clicked on it once, you create this complex style that I just will show you in a short while. Or if you want to change the color and the properties of the text when the user is moving their mouse over that element, you could use the hover pseudo class selector. We can either type in the code for entering the pseudo classes, pseudo class selectors, or we could use the add style rule window to create this kind of styles for the hyperlinks, and I will show you how to do that. Okay, now here I am at the bottom of the styles file that I was working with, and what I need to do is to place my mouse at the end of this file and click on styles from the window and add new style, add style rule from the list that appears. So if I click on the add style rule, it would take me to the add style rule window, and there I could apply and add element styles or element selectors. I could create class selectors, and I could create element ID selectors. I would like to use an element ID selector to apply this new style that I will create to be applied only in the main content of the text, not everywhere in the page. So I would type main content, and I'll click on the add button, or this button in the middle here, and it goes to the style rule hierarchy. So what I would like to do is I would like to basically create a color for my hypertexts, and the hypertext essentially are the A element. So click on the radio button next to the element, and then I click on the A, and as you see, it would allow me to do a active, a hover, a link, a visited, and so forth. So I click on the A element, and when it is selected, I just press the add selector, and it would put it under the main content, as you can see. Now we'll click OK here, and when we go to the style sheet, it added a hierarchical selector that I was just talking about them earlier. Puts the A element after the main content ID. That tells me that whatever styling that I apply here or supply here, it will be applied to only A elements or anchor elements, or essentially the hyperlinks that are within the main content box. So I could either create a color for this, or by typing the code, or I could click in the between the curly braces and go to build style and go to the font and find the color. Let's add this color 008000, and okay, that creates a green color for me. And the text decoration, I would like to make it underline. This way my links, when they are not visited, they will look they will be underlined, and they would look essentially green. Now if I save this style sheet here and go back to the default and create a hyperlink somewhere, let's create a hyperlink in the beginning of this page. And let's make it my web page. and let's run this file. Okay, as you can see here, the page is rendered, and the first line, which is this is the hyperlink to my website, it is underlined, and it is essentially a hypertext because in the status bar at the bottom of this web page, when I move the mouse over, it is trying to access an external web page, essentially. So, okay, now as you saw, that the website that we created now has a link, and the link is in the main content, and it turned green. It was shown in green instead of blue by default for a hyperlink. Now when we click on that hyperlink, the color of this the link wouldn't change, and sometimes you might want to change the color to distinguish between the pages that we have visited and the pages we haven't yet. In order to do that, we can use the visited pseudo class selector, and all I need to do is to add the word visited after the colon and after letter A, and let's make the visited links to appear red. That is, the color would be a number that is FF0000. So the first two F's are for red, full red. That is the hexadecimal FF, and then the next two are for green color. There are 0 green color in it, and there is 0 blue color. And if I click on the link, I would see that when let's run this page, and so if I run the page and I changed the link from my website to another link that was not visited, and in order just to show you how it looks like. So when the page is not visited yet, it's green, and when I click on it and it goes to a new page, essentially, which is the access is denied to this particular page, and it turns red. It's now visited. Now let's go back to the style sheet, and let's make the color of this link change also when we have our mouse moving over the page. So I use the pseudo class selector hover, and I change this color into an orange kind of color, and that's the number FFA500. And when I run this page in the browser, the page is visited, that's why it's red, and when I move my mouse over it, the link turns kind of orangish, as you see here, and it would allow me to notice if I'm about to click on a link, and the mouse pointer changed to a hand, but the color of the link also changed. This is useful when you are creating menus that are interactive, and you could assign the background colors and the foreground colors of your menu links to change. And for example, if I were to create a menu that would move and take me to several objects, all I need to do is that within my web developer, let's say I would like to create a menu that is on top here. So I would want to have a home page, and then so if I run these menus, if I run this page, you'll see that in the top of the page I'll have these text that is not basically being essentially linking me to anywhere. What I can do is that I can make these two hyperlinks, and these hyperlinks would link the page to another page and open another web page, and let me do that in the text here. So I don't have that file yet, so if I apply it, it would give me probably an error. It would definitely give me an error. So I have created now two web links here, one for the home and one for the extra. So let me run this page. And so the home is by default turned into this purple look because I already have visited this. If I click on extra, it would give me an error. I don't have that web page. And when I go back, they are essentially now turned into the colors, the purple colors, because they're visited now. And that is the default behavior of these elements. Now, using the ID element, I can, and the hierarchical cascading style sheet that I just did for the main content links, I can apply the same thing to first of all get rid of the underscore here, and also make sure that the color of my hover, my hyperlinks would not change, so I won't use the visited. I just apply a color for them when they are not, when the mouse is not over them, and a different color when the mouse is over them. I can also use the background color to make the background color change, so they kind of look like they're in boxes. So let's do that. So go to the style sheet and create a hierarchical anchor for the menu wrapper. So I will go to the menu wrapper and I go at the end of my page and I paste it, and in the menu wrapper I only apply this style to A when it is not, when the mouse is not over the hyperlinks in the menu wrapper, and I make the background color number, let's say that we have C0, C0 and C0, and the color, let's make it so if you run your default page, the page appears as this. Maybe these are too bright, so you won't be able to see them. Let's go back to the style. And let's run the page one more time. So now they are kind of, the text is green, and it won't change, and the background color of the text box is essentially a gray. So if I want to make changes when the mouse is over them, I simply use the hover pseudo class detector selector for the menu wrapper A element, and for the hover let's make the changes between the background and the foreground colors of this text. So now if I go back to the default page and run the page in browser, let's see, when I move my mouse over, the background color and the foreground color, change when they're hover, and it makes them look a little bit more interactive. We can apply this to elements in the table and other types of elements. Now, to get out that extra space, as you see, for between the two elements, you can basically apply or supply that space within your link. So in here, this space is between the two links. If I take this space within home and supply the same to my extra link here, you will notice if I run the element in the browser, the space between them is much more limited and smaller, and I have extra spaces, as you see, in the beginning and at the end of the text. So it looks a little bit more professional. You could play with the margins and the padding of your cells to achieve the same look. Now here I eliminated even that single space between the two items in the menu bar, so they're now kind of look more seamless here, and the entire menu is now kind of a connected solid gray bar with the items, the menu items within the menu bar. And so this hover technique would essentially create this visual look for your web pages. Okay, so enough with that, with this pseudo elements, and let's move on to the next topic. Alright, so I showed you how to create and connect external style sheets actually to your files, and next thing to do is basically to see how you can attach style sheets to the files, and also how to create embedded and inline style sheets to your web documents. When you're working with a page in the design view, and I will show you shortly how it looks like and how it works in the design view of your web developer. You may make some small changes to the page and some formatting to your text, maybe changing the borders of an element. So we need to make sure at this point that and decide how we would like to have this styling done, basically as an external style sheet, embedded, or inline. And basically you can create external style sheets or embedded style sheets and then use them later on, or reuse them later on in other web pages. However, Visual Web Developer does not care about how you would like to put and to create your style sheets. It actually allows you to do all the three types of styling within the style management windows and tools that it gives you, and also it makes it very easy and flexible to move these styles around and to add inline style sheets to an external style sheets, or make an embedded style sheet, basically completely reuse it and have it transformed or transported to an external style sheet. And I'll show you a little later how this can be done. The only thing that's important is to keep note that it's always a good idea to have the styles that are used by multiple pages, have them done in an external style sheet file or in several external style sheet files, and then use them and attach them to your files. So let's go to our web developer, and I'll show you how to add an external style sheet and attach it to your documents, and then how to create embedded and inline style sheets, and then how to move these styles around from one type to the next. Okay, here I'm back in my web developer, and as you see, the style that I created in the stylesheet.css file is linked in the header of my page. Now let's delete this, and or the head of the page actually. So let's delete this and let's run the page in a window. And now that I took the style sheet link out, no style has been applied to the page, and as you see, everything is rendered as the default rendering of the browser. Now in order to add the style sheet to your file, you could, or to your home page, web page, you could either use the link element in the head element of the page and type in the information about the page, or you could add it by using the Manage Styles window from your document. To get there, you need to go to the main menu and click on View, and then click on Other Views, and then you see different options that it gives you. So what you need to use is to Manage Styles window, and when you click on Manage Styles window, it basically opens the style sheet. Now that you have your Manage Styles window open, click on so I don't have any styles open yet, so click on this Attach Style Sheet button, and then it would show you, it would open a list of all the external style files that you have, and I have only one here, so click select it and click OK, and it will show you all different types of style styling elements that I have created. As you see, the ones in the blue are basically the element selectors, and the ones in the red are the ID selectors. So so the style is already added to your text, and let's run it in the browser. So here is my page after I applied the style sheet to it. Alright, now let's try to create some inline and embedded style sheets, and then later let's move these style sheets around and put them in an external style sheet file. Now here, if you look at the h1 element in my main content, which is this text here, and when you run this text, the web page in the browser, you'll see that the browser automatically adds some space before and after the header contents, and this amount of space changes from browser to browser. So what we could do is that we could create an inline style here, override the browser's default amount of spaces that it adds before and after the heading element, and create our own margins. So let's go back to the browser. Now you select the h1 element, and we can use the format, which is on top here, and apply a new style to it, or attach a style sheet to it. So what we need to do is to create a new style. When you click on New Style, the New Style dialog box appears, and so you could choose either a class style, or an inline style, or any other types of element selectors that you basically would use. So here for this h1 element, I created in an inline style. So that is my I'm telling the web developer to create an inline style within the H1 element in the page that I'm working in. And then I need to go to the box element, and this option would show me the way that the elements are represented within a box. So as I said, the outer margin is the margin of the element, and then there's the border of the element, and then there's the padding, and then this blue place here is where the element is basically placed. So what I need to do is to make sure that I'll take all the paddings basically off, or make it 0, and so click on the same for all checkbox and make the padding 0, and then make the margin of the text to be essentially 10 pixels for the bottom and 0 pixels from the top, left, right. So uncheck the same for all margin. You want it to be 0 pixels from the top, 0 pixels from the right, 1 pixel and 10 pixels from the bottom, and 0 pixels from the left. And here's how your text would look like. Your padding is 0 pixels. That basically makes all the paddings 0 for all the elements, and your margin is basically 0 pixels from top, 0 pixels from right, 0 pixels from top, 10 pixels from bottom, and 0 pixels from the right. So click on Apply and click on OK. Now let's go back to the source code, and you see that it automatically added the style in line with H1 heading, and that is how the the margin and the padding of this text box are now overridden. Let's run in the browser and let's see how the page changed. And if you notice here, previously, before I did that overriding of the inline style, this heading was 10 pixels from the menu bar and 10 pixels from the main content. Now the new style is applied, so the left margin, the right margin, and the top margin are 0, and the bottom margin is 10 pixels, basically telling me that this heading element is 10 pixels from the main content of the page, which is the first line here. Okay, now that we created an inline style for the H1, which is right here in this style property or style attribute, let us create a paragraph for this page, and let's try to apply a style to it, or create a embedded style for it. So let's make this one a paragraph. And let's have this as an introductory paragraph. And then let's add a secondary paragraph. And if you go to the design view, you will see that you have two paragraphs within your file. So if you click on the first paragraph, you see a little P tab on top of it telling me that these two are basically separate paragraphs. So if I run this in the browser, let's see what happens. So I have separated the two paragraphs that I have here, and I want to apply a class selector style to it as an embedded style, and make this first paragraph italicized. So to do that, I need to click on the paragraph, and then I need to go to Format and go to New Style. And then in New Style, it automatically creates it with a dot selector, which is a class selector, and let's call this Introduction. And then let's go to Font Style and make the font style italic, and then click OK. Now when you click OK, you will see that there is a in the Manage Styles window, the page has a CSS style with all the style that I created in the external style file, and it has now an introduction selector, class selector, which is embedded, and it's represented by a green circle. Now if I go back to the source view, and if you go all the way up to the head element of your page, you will see that the introduction that you created within the new style window, it is added as an embedded style sheet into the heading or the head element of your document. So if you run this in the browser, oh, and yeah, one more thing. I need to go back to my my document and create a class called introduction, and when I apply that and I run it in the browser, I forgot to close the class element. So now I did that. Now as you see, the introductory element is in italic, and the secondary element, which is the second paragraph or P tag, is basically rendered as the default. And that is the power of using classes. And here the class is embedded. I could have had it in an external style sheet, which I will do in a short while. But notice that for this paragraph, I wanted this paragraph only to be applied, to have the style applied to it, and I just made the class basically as the introduction class that I defined in the CSS style sheet, and the other paragraph is just a simple paragraph, and the style is not applied to it. Okay, let's select our paragraph which had the introduction on it, and then let's go to View, and then let's go to Other Windows, and let's go to CSS Properties. And if you go to CSS Properties, you would see that several items are basically shown on the styles and formattings of this paragraph, and some of them are essentially the rules that are applied to it. So the bottom half of this window essentially will show you the CSS properties that are in effect, and the top half shows the number of rules that are applied in the current page. And it tells you, for example, to the HTML tag, the star is applied, which is the universal selector. Universal selector is also applied to the body, to the form, and to the page wrapping. And then page wrapper style is also applied to the page wrapper. And the universal rule and the main content rules are applied to the main content, and so on and so forth. And the CSS properties for the current class selection that you created here basically is the font style, which tells me that it's italic, and everything else is pretty much the default. I didn't change anything else for this particular object, as you see. You could click on this two buttons up here in the CSS properties, show categorize, or show them in an alphabetic way. And if you click on the third button here on top, it shows the properties that you set on top, and the ones that you haven't set them there by default, they just basically populate the bottom of the page. And if I uncheck that, you see the font style, which is italic. It's from the like the fifth rule of the font category, and so it shows it in its original location. If I click on this blue thing, it basically brings it on top, telling me that this is the or these are the styles that are in effect. For example, if you click on the A document, it would show you that the color property has been changed and the text decoration is basically underlined. If I go to the A tag for the home from the menu, it shows me that the text decoration is 0, the background is C0, 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 and the color is 005000. So anyway, this is how you can browse through the styles that you applied and you created. Now let's go back to the P tag with the class set to as the introduction, and from the CSS properties list in the bottom half of the CSS properties, let's find the color and change the color of this this class to a different color. So this is the color, and you can click on the arrow and it will allow you to choose between a set of colors that you have. You could click on more colors and choose from a color setting. You can click on the custom option and custom make the colors that you want to use, or you could cancel this and with the color click on the area in front of the color and add a number for the color. So let's add the number 003399. That's basically a color for the font of this object, and then let's run this in the browser. So I now have made the first paragraph to show in italic and also to render the text in blue color. Okay, now finally to finish up the style sheets in the Visual Web Developer, there are two more topics that are left. One is to use apply styles window to apply styles to elements in your web document, and also to upgrade your style sheets from inline or embedded to external style sheets. And I will talk about them now. Let's go back to our browser, and let's assume that the style class introduction was not applied to the P element. Let's run it in the browser, and when you look at it, you see that the inline element was not applied to your style. In order to do this, to apply this element or style, you need to select the tag that you want to apply the elements or the style on, and then you need to click View and Other Windows and go to Apply Styles. And from the Apply Styles, you can click on the introduction, and that would apply that particular style that you wanted to the object or the tag that you have selected. Let's watch in the browser, and here it is. The style is now applied. Now we could move the embedded or inline styles to an external style sheet, and to do that we could click on the style that we want to upgrade. So here I have a sections. There is a CSS style sheet that is uses an external style sheets, and these are the styles that are in the CSS style sheet. Then in the current page you have an embedded style sheet that is a class selector, and you call it introduction, and then you have Basically, in this page, you're using the two of the CSS style sheets for the H1 element, and then you have an inline style that is basically the one down here with a yellow button. And when I move the mouse over, it tells me what formatting is used to it, is used in it. So I could right-click on this element and create new style copy, and this would create a new style class selector, and it would allow me to put this in an external style sheet. So what I need to do is to change this class, instead of being a class selector, to be an element selector applied to H1 tag. I want it to be from an existing style sheet, and then I want to put it in the CSS to the style sheet .css file that is my external style sheet. If it's not here, I could click on browse and find the style sheet that I want this copy to be placed in, and then click OK. Now when you click OK, you will see that in your basically style sheet.css, the copy of the inline style that you created is applied to an element selector H1, and the padding is 0 and the margin is 0, 0, 10, 0 pixels, and then you can save this file. And you go back to the default page and just remove this style from your H1 tag, because it is already applied within the CSS file, and then save your document. If you go to the style sheet, you will see that H1 has padding and margin that you just created, and then it also has the font size that you had created before. So you could merge these two manually. So just copy or cut this styling information and insert it or paste it, and then go to the end of your document and remove the empty H1 style. And if you run the page, you will notice that the margin that you created will be still applied to your heading H1, because in fact it is now a part of the external style sheet. Now if I wanted to basically upgrade an embedded style sheet that I have here within my tags, I could still do that, and I could click on View, click on Other Windows, go to Manage Styles window, and here I have my styles that are in my style sheet.css file, and then I have a current page that has an embedded style class, and that is the green dot here. What I could do is, if I wanted to upgrade this embedded style sheet and take it from my page all the way up to my CSS file, I could left click on it and drag it up into my my style sheet area, the style sheet.css, and just leave it somewhere. I could just place it in the introduction class in my between the H1 and the page wrapper. I could place it anywhere. And if I go back to my style sheet and go all the way up between the H1 and the page wrapper styles, you'll see that the introduction has been moved to the CSS style sheet. And if I save all the changes and then run the page in browser, I wouldn't notice any changes, because the CSS style sheet now contains the embedded style sheet that I had within my page, but it now has it in the external style sheet, and it is removed from my embedded styles here because it is not needed anymore, and I can delete this style element up here. So this concludes the style sheet and using the style sheets to format our documents. And I have put the first project or programming assignment online, and that is essentially an assignment that you will basically create an imaginary website for a department, a computer science department, and in that website you'll have links and menus such as the ones that I created here to faculty pages, student pages, contact information, and the programs for the department, and you use cascading style sheets to style your HTML pages and make them visually relevant and visually interesting. So with this, I finished this work on basic HTML elements and presentation, and I will start with the next talk. I will start talking about the active server pages, server controls, and we'll see how they work, and then next week we start programming in C# for our server side processes.